Hey everybody, Joe here, and I'd like to take you through an image edit and then into the compositional part of it, which in many cases is the most important. And we're going to do some real basic edits here and maybe a little bit of light painting. Now, I'm working in Lightroom today, and some people think that this kind of stuff is cheating, but I don't ever remember hearing anybody think that Ansel Adams was cheating when he went in the darkroom and burned and dodged in order to change where the light was going. The other problem is nowadays with digital cameras, they don't see the way we see. And if we take a look at the histogram here, look in the upper right, you can see that it stretches from all the way to the left all the way to the right. So it's a perfect capture. But since the camera doesn't see the way our eyes do, for lots of reasons I won't go into here, what's happened is the whites are too white, the shadows are too dark, and the color's been lost. So let's go ahead and just do those basic edits. This is going to be really quick. So we don't have enough detail in the cloud, so we're going to bring the highlights way down. And in the foreground, it's very dark. We'll bring the shadows up. Now, when we do that, the image gets very flat. So we're going to add some texture, some presence. I'm going to come about halfway out in texture, about halfway that much as far as clarity goes. I'm going to leave dehaze for the time being. Also, as far as vibrance, saturation, vibrance will increase the cooler and desaturated colors, so the blues, you can see the blue sky gets much bluer. And saturation will increase all of the colors. And in that case, it's a little too much, so let's back off. Now, still with that, we have a problem that the foreground is darker than it needs to be, and the highlights, the clouds, are still lighter than we need to be. And again, part of that is because our eyes can see somewhere between 20 and 22 stops light to dark, but our cameras can only see about 8.5 or so. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to make it really simple. I'm going to get the graduated filter, click here and drag down. By the way, if I come down here and show the overlay, you can see the area that's been selected. It's okay that it's hitting the top of the monument here because it's starting to fade away already anyway. So let's hit O to turn that off. I'm going to add some contrast to those clouds. Well, that's looking a lot better. And I am going to add some dehaze, which will add more drama to them. Oh, I see I got a spot or two. Can you see right there? There's a spot. There's a spot. And these will come out as you increase this contrast. So let's hit done with that. Actually, let's not hit done. Let's hit new. And you can see that the sun is hitting this brush here. It's casting shadows, yet for some reason it's gone dark. So we're going to do the same thing here, and I'm going to do it at an angle. And we're going to increase the exposure there to lighten that up. And that's looking a lot better already. Now a little bit of local stuff. We're going to get a brush up here. I have auto mask turned on. I'm going to turn on the overlay so we can see what we're getting. And I want to add a little bit more interest to the features over here. And I'm just dragging over this. And again, it doesn't really matter that I'm not very precise. At least by having auto mask on, when I click on this mesa here, it only gets that. And it leaves the sky alone with a few exceptions. And got a little sky there. So let's hold down the Alt key to get rid of the little bit of clouds. And by the way, one thing you might be noticing here, see how the clouds have gone a little bit red here? This is actually something that does happen out in Monument Valley. Just the light hitting all of this red dirt does reflect onto the bottom of the low clouds. So let's hit O to turn off that overlay. I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. Again, something Ansel Adams would have done in the darkroom. I'm no Ansel Adams, I'm not claiming to be, but this is the kind of thing where you want to draw the viewer's eye to where you want them to go. I'm going to add some more texture. I'm going to add a little dehaze to that as well. And you can see that does add more drama to the image. So that quickly, we have gone quite a ways. In fact, if I hit the backslash key, there's where we started. And there's where we are. And that's looking a whole lot better. So what else is going on that we need to fix? So I mentioned the spots. So let's come up here to the spot removal tool. And I already had visualize spots turned on. You can turn that on and off. Let's back off on the strength of that. And anywhere you see something that looks almost like a perfect circle, like right there, that's a spot. So we'll click on that. We'll click on that one. Now, I'm not sure about this. So let's hit the A key, which will toggle visualize spots. And we could see if any of these other things look like there's spots here or here or here. No, they're actually just features of the cloud. So we can hit done with that. So again, we started there, we went there that quickly. Overall, I think the image could probably use a little bit more contrast. Let's add some contrast to that. Yeah, that's looking better. And I made the sky maybe a little too dark up here, but I already know that's going to get cropped off, so I'm not going to worry about it. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll come into detail. We'll put some sharpening back in. Let's put our pointer up here on the top of West Mitten, which is what that's called. I'm going to bring up the sharpness about halfway, which is too much for the entire image. But then I'm going to hold in the Alt key, click on the masking slider, and then drag it over until it only is picking up the edges of things, like about there, maybe even a little less, like there. And that will sharpen the edges without touching the large areas of blue. So again, I like where we've come from there to there. Now it's time to think about the composition. So really it's going to come down to cropping. What are we going to do to crop this image? Oh, I think I found another spot. Is that a spot? Yeah, that's a spot. So let's get that again. That was a little subtle one. We'll click in there. Be done with that. And there we go. That's gone. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit, let's see. I'm going to do 4 different possibilities. So I'm going to hold down Command or Control on a PC. Apostrophe 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, let's do 5. I'm going to make 5 copies of it. All right, so here's our original. I'm going to leave that one alone. Let's come over to here. So compositionally, what's going on? The bigger the print you're going to make, the more you can include in it. So that's something you have to think about. But again, let's take a look. We have, obviously, this is West Mitten. West Mitten here is the star. But in its composition, it's relatively small to the rest of what's going on. The clouds are kind of overpower it. Even some of the brush is starting to compete. So that means we have to get rid of stuff. So let's get the R key. And I have my composition set on, not on the rule of thirds, but the golden ratio. And just so you know, if you come up to Tools, Crop Guide Overlay, there it is. The default is thirds, but I like golden ratio much better for landscapes. So again, I mentioned there's just too much sky. So let's bring this down. And if we go strictly by the golden ratio grid, we can see here now we've got our lower line on the horizon, and that does help. Is that enough? I don't know. Let's hit OK. And one other thing I'm going to do while we're here is go under Effects, add a minus highlight priority, just subtly. Hardly even looks like we did anything, but if you turn it on and off, you can see how it's just darkened the edges a bit, which kind of recenters you into the image. All right, so from there, that's where we started, to there. So by cropping in, now even though the sky is still very dramatic, we've simplified the composition a little bit, so now the monument is getting a little more play. However, for this to work, this would still need to be a physically large print. Let's go a little further. Let's take this one, bring up the crop tool, and let's get even a little more croppy. So I'm going to bring in from the right and from the left. We're going to really simplify. Again, we're going to bring the sky down. I think even maybe a little more. And we're even going to crop into the brush. Let's see what happens if we do about right there. So let's hit enter on that. And in this case, actually, I don't like it. There's too much. There's too much of this stuff got cropped. And what's happening is it's breaking up your light path, your visual path from left to right. You need to have a little bit underneath these pieces of brush here. So let's bring that back down. We need to have a little of the sandy dirt there. And let's see what that does. See how much that helps just by doing that? Now you have kind of a way into the scene. You almost have a visual path that allows you to walk down this path and then get there. Ooh, which gives me an idea. Let's get the brush and let's turn on the overlay. We're going to turn off auto mask and let's take our brush and literally draw a path to the monument. Let's see if that helps. All right. Okay, so I'm going to hit the O to hide that mask, although it's still on, and I would bring up the exposure a bit. And that actually subtly, I'm going to bring the highlights down a little, flatten it out. But by increasing that exposure a little bit, it actually subliminally kind of drags you down this path into the image. All right, I think we have one that's in pretty good shape right there. Let's see if we can take it even a little bit further. So again, here we are. Now this could also work as more of a panoramic feel. So let's get our crop tool, again, R, and let's bring this way down here. And we're going to, again, keep a little, we've already learned that we need to have a little bit of dirt underneath these weeds or whatever they are. I'm not sure exactly what they are. And let's see how that works. Maybe still a little bit too much on the right. So let's come in a little bit. And that's looking pretty good. Let's apply our vignette. And that is certainly a valid possibility. I think we could get away with that. Maybe a little bit too much on the left. Let's see if we bring that in a little bit more. Something like there. And yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe not quite there. Let's split the difference. And yeah, I think that is working a lot better. And again, we compare it to where we started, which was here. Here, the sky is almost the star. The monument formation is a secondary item because the sky is so dominant. But by coming over to here, we're now making the monument, West Minton again, we're making that the star. Let's go ahead and go crazy and do one more. Again, we'll get R for our crop tool. And I'm going to try something a little different. Let's completely get rid of the foreground, or mostly get rid of the foreground. And I'm going to do a 3:1. Let's go to 3:1, see what that looks like. The reason I say 3:1 is because 3:1 happens to be a standard frame size that you can find in Michaels, for example. And sometimes it can be make for a very interesting image. And I think it needs a little bit below, a little bit more than that, maybe there. Oh, this points out something else as well. When you have something that's got a base, in this case we have the horizon here, if you don't leave enough of it, it kind of unhinges. It almost, the formations above it kind of lose lock on the land. So if we do that, that works okay. But if we bring it up to here because we want more sky, and we have this thin little bit of land underneath, it doesn't look right. It looks like we've cut it off. So you got to make sure you leave enough of that. So I'm thinking probably almost close to our golden ratio. And let's go full screen on that one. And yeah, that does work because now you've got this path. You generally read a panoramic left to right. So you kind of start coming in. You kind of go right to the monument. You kind of linger around a little bit. You've got this other one off in the distance that's gone dark with this kind of dark shadow. But the light of the side of the monument, since it's lighter than anything over here, kind of draws you back in. In fact, let's aid that a little bit more. I'm going to do a graduated filter along the right side, and I'm just going to bring the highlights down a little bit and maybe the overall exposure. Jim, no, let's not do the exposure. Let's actually bring the contrast down and bring the highlights down a lot. It's going to be very subtle. Yeah, just by taking away some of the contrast and making that just a smidge darker now, you have a tendency to refocus on the monument. So let's go ahead again. So see the process, the path we took. Here's the one where we left more of the foreground in. Something like this is more of a 16 by 20, an 8 by 10 kind of shape. Something like a 16 by 20 in this that would work. And then go back again. I like this one. I like the feel of this one better because you have more room to explore. You kind of can picture yourself walking along this path and getting closer to the monument. And then lastly, our entire original shot where we did our edit, which again, you can see it does offer you lots of possibilities for composition, but there's just too much sky compared to the foreground, and the sky becomes the star. If we want this to be the star, as it really is, these crops work better. Even just doing that, again, this will work, but you need to have a big print so that the monument has a big enough space in the image. Take it a little further by cropping left and right. Now we're really focused on the monument and the mesa leading up to it. Come over a little bit more. This is probably my favorite because we've got a lot of foreground. You've got the path to lead, the physical path, which is also a visual path that leads you in so that you can imagine yourself getting closer. And then lastly, one to fit in a panoramic frame. I only showed you this because it does fit in this kind of 3-to-1 panoramic frame. Is this my favorite? No, because you just have this brush. It's kind of like you're standing behind a fence looking over it. In my opinion, just for me, this is the composition that works the best because although we still have the dramatic sky there, we've minimized it and made the West Mitten the prominent, the most important piece of the image. And you also have the foreground, dirt, and path that's allowing you to get there. So little fine points that make a huge difference on the composition of your images. And this is this is in Monument Valley, the Monument Valley Tribal Park in the border of northern Arizona and Utah. And we'll be back there in November. If you'd like to join us, visit my website, joebradyphotography.com, and take a look at our workshops. So, hope you had fun with that. Hope you learned something. Take your time when you're thinking about composition because very fine changes have a huge impact on where the viewer looks at the image and how the elements in the image present themselves to the viewer. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you online again soon. Bye-bye.